time I get wind that a new mech-based game is scheduled for release, my ears perk up. I'm a huge Gundam fan and spent a good portion of my PS2 days playing anything and everything Gundam related. I also spent many hours blasting through Armored Core Silent Line, a personal favorite of mine. I just love giant mechanical beasts boosting and dashing back and forth in epic combat. So when I heard that D3 was developing and publishing their own mech-based game, my enthusiasm peaked. That is, until I saw the trailer. Something didn't feel right. I love the mechs that were being shown, the crazy customization, and the potential for one's own personal creations to go to war was right up my alley. But what was being displayed combat-wise on the screen felt thin. But being the die-hard mech lover that I am, I wasn't going to judge a book by its cover. Only a fool would do that. So I reached out to D3's PR department, and they were gracious enough to provide me with a review copy of the game. Now, having said that, my reviews cannot be bought, so what I'm about to say is 100% all me. Let's start with the story. The story involves rogue mechs that you have to go to war with, a potentially cataclysmic disaster you must deal with, as well as betrayal. It's a very by-the-numbers story that takes a lot of its cues from other works of anime, particularly Mobile Suit Gundam. The story could honestly be absent and you wouldn't be missing much. The reason for this is that there are no cutscenes, not even EDF level cutscenes to add to the narrative. A face is never given to any of the characters, so all depictions of those driving the story are left up to your imagination. Some may like this, others may wish for a bit more to give the story more visibility, to stop it from being lost amongst the myriad of text boxes that are used to advance the story. Text boxes that you will see both before and during the missions. Now, speaking of text boxes, this leads me into sound. The one overwhelming sound you will hear through the game is the constant radio chatter of your team and enemies, all spoken in Japanese. Japanese audio isn't a problem if you speak Japanese or have the ability to read the numerous English text boxes that are displayed during the missions, which are the primary means of keeping you involved in the story. If you don't speak Japanese, you will miss large sections of the story as the majority of it is fleshed out during combat. Unfortunately, there is no English voiceovers. The rest of the sounds are what you would expect from a mech game. The whizzing sound of missiles tearing through the air, giant explosions as mechs are obliterated in a fiery ball of devastation, the rat-tat-tat of machine gun fire punching holes in your opponent's armor. It's all there and it sounds great. It's fitting and effective. When it comes to gameplay, Custom Mech Wars borrows heavily from the Earth Defense Force series. It has a similar mission structure to EDF, followed by 5 difficulty options you can choose from, each difficulty netting you bigger and better parts to use in the customization of your mech. During combat, defeated enemies will drop 3 kinds of boxes: red power-up boxes that are used to level up mech parts and weapons, yellow part boxes that will give you either mech parts or weapons, and purple special item cubes that will give you a temporary buff such as speed, boost, attack, unlimited ammo, and no damage. If you choose a higher difficulty, the game will throw more powerful enemies at you and in greater number, just like in EDF. So as you boost the difficulty, you will have to boost the power of your mech accordingly through the customization feature, which I will speak on more later. Don't even think of tackling the nightmare difficulty with the same pimped out mech you used in your hard playthrough. It will only result in you being humbled quickly and realizing you need to go back to the drawing board. Controlling your mech is honestly, in my opinion, an area of the game that is near perfect, dashing and flying, all the while bombarding your enemies with missiles, mines, gunfire, laser beams, shotguns, howitzers, you name it, it is a thing of ease and extremely enjoyable. You get a sense of power and control over your mech that some mech games struggle with. Custom Mech Wars gets that right. Never once did I feel overwhelmed or underwhelmed by the controls. They're set up in such a way that you have a good deal of freedom over how you want your armaments laid out. You have main armaments, sub-lock-on armaments, melee, automatic, and critical controls. Critical controls see you designate one particular weapon to be on that button press alone, usually reserved for your low ammo but extremely powerful weapon you don't want used up haphazardly. You can even zoom in with your mech, and when doing so, it will activate any sniper weaponry you have equipped. It's honestly an excellent setup for what could have been a cumbersome and convoluted control scheme. D3 got this spot on and even made it so you can customize the controls to your liking. During combat, you are accompanied by AI teammates who can be a help and a hindrance. They will do a good job of attacking enemies, but will damage you if you walk into them or them into you. It's a minor annoyance, but could result in some unfortunate deaths if you happen to bump into one at low armor. Never happened to me, but it is a possibility. Speaking of death, unlike EDF where it's one and done if you play solo, in Custom Mech Wars you actually get 5 lives of a sort. Basically, the first 5 mechs you have in your inventory you can access whenever you like, either by climbing out of your current mech and requesting one of your other 4 to drop in, or if you get blown up in your mech you can request a replacement. If your 5 mechs get destroyed, and they will on Nightmare, then the mission has failed and you have to start again. Climbing out of your mech has a few different purposes. 1. To request another mech. 2. To activate either a decoy or a gun turret scattered around each map. And finally, to try capturing rogue mechs with. If you manage to capture one, you will get a guaranteed bonus part or weapon at the end of the mission. Combat in Custom Mech Wars is a mixed bag. You will fight enemies that are small, medium, and large in size. They are hit specific, so if one particular enemy has a gun that is ruining your day, you can target and blow it off, which is a nice feature. However, what most players will discover is that it's best to just bombard the enemy with gunfire of all sorts in the hopes of taking it down quickly. But the option is there to pinpoint certain mech parts if you so choose. Unlike EDF, enemies come at you in a pretty predetermined pattern. They come in waves and approach you like a Civil War militia, standing in rows, bombarding you with volley after volley of gunfire, hoping you go down before they do. Enemies materialize right before your eyes with no real idea where they are coming from. No drop ships or enemy bases, they just poof into existence. It removes a bit of the immersion factor that EDF gives, and I know some of you will argue that this isn't EDF, but others will argue that it takes so many cues from EDF it's hard not to make comparisons. I do have to say though, that I'm honestly hooked and addicted to this game. There is something satisfying about unleashing a barrage of missiles and gunfire on a group of mechanized enemies and watching the explosions go off left and right, followed by a ball of flame and momentary dismemberment of said mechanized enemies before they disappear almost immediately from sight. Buildings will blow up and crumble in PS2 fashion. Giant-sized mechs can stomp through the city like Godzilla, leaving a path of crumbled buildings in their wake. Smaller mechs can zig and zag through the numerous office buildings that line each level and use them for temporary cover. There is definitely fun to be had with this game, and I've had quite a bit of fun and will be going back for more. The drive to collect the different mech parts and weapons has an identical feel for me to the drive to gather weapons like I did in EDF. Seeing the word new next to a mech part or weapon at the end of a level gives me the exact same excitement EDF games do. I'm always eager after battle to go to the hangar and check out what new gear I acquired. Or go to the research department where you can develop new parts and purchase entire mechs all together with the materials you gather at the end of each successful mission. This is really beneficial when you are trying to make your mech have symmetry, so you buy an identical gun so you can then equip one in each hand. Not to mention, you can buy more powerful versions of said part or weapon if you have enough of the correct materials. Now on to customization. This is where Custom Mech Wars gets things completely right and where most of the focus of the game is placed. If you love creating your own mechs, you will absolutely love the customization feature of this game. You can make whatever you want, however you want, in whatever color you want. As I'm sure those of you who have seen the trailer know, you can make some of the goofiest designs you want, or you can create the most epic war machine your imagination can dream up. For those who are extremely creative and don't mind putting in the time, you can design mechs that represent your favorites from anime. The freedom to create as you wish is there, and the design limitations are virtually non-existent. There is a weight limit to the construction of your mechs, but when you start building, you will realize that the weight limit is quite forgiving, and you'll be able to build some absolutely fantastic creations. You can mix and match small, medium, and large parts. You can have giant legs with a tiny head with a huge machine gun mounted on each arm. The sky's the limit. Also, the control setup used to build with is very intuitive and easy to get a grasp of. I acclimated to controls in just a few minutes and was on my way to building my own creations in no time. Here's a tip though. The higher the star value of the legs you equip, the more weight your mech can hold. Keep that in mind if you can't quite build the mech you want from the get-go. Go to the research department, and if you have the right materials, buy the legs you want in a higher star value. This will boost the weight limit for you. Now, regarding multiplayer, I have only been able to get into a room with a group of 3 others once. At this time, the amount of people playing multiplayer is pretty sparse. But I have to say, it feels just like EDF's multiplayer. From the lobby to the mission preparation screen, you will feel right at home jumping into a match or setting up your own. The combat was identical, with four of us zipping and flying back and forth across the screen, blowing up baddies. There is even a similar chat wheel to EDF, only a tad more cumbersome to use, but still there and still fun when you want to do an EDF style shout out. Something else I would like to mention is that there is no split screen, and this is a major negative for me. These types of games like EDF scream split screen, and with the game being less than 6 gigabytes in size, there's no real excuse for it not being included. It would have been a perfect fit for this game. So, in conclusion, while I have had a really fun time playing Custom Mech Wars and can attest to the addictive nature of its gameplay, the fun combat, grinding for parts and weapons, the enjoyable multiplayer, and the outstanding mech building component, I have to be completely honest about the package as a whole. The game costs $49.99 for the base game, and while that is cheaper than most next generation titles, it still feels overpriced for what you get. You get 40 missions, PS2 to PS4 level graphics depending on what you're looking at, no split screen, which obviously is subjective on whether it's a negative or not to you, a story that is only fleshed out in text and Japanese audio, no cutscenes to add to the immersion, enemies that while fun to fight and destroy could use a bit more individualistic AI. Granted, this could be a design decision based on the story. The game as a whole just feels overpriced for what all is included. If this game had released at a budget price of $29.99 to $39.99, I'd be more apt to recommend this to all. However, as it stands, I can only recommend this title to those who are die-hard mech fans and love the idea of building their own mechanized creations. For everyone else, I'd wait for a price drop. So that, my friends, is my review of Custom Mech Wars for the PlayStation 5. If you've enjoyed this review, I would really love it if you'd give it a like. Please comment down below and please subscribe to the channel if you're new. And if you'd like to support the channel further, I do have a Patreon at patreon.com/EDF Central. As always, guys, take care, God bless, and keep on gaming.